This is lesson 11.4, Designing Spinners, the parent help video for grade 3 everyday math. I borrowed this spinner from Homelink 11.4 for grade 3 everyday math. So we don't have any new vocabulary words in this unit, and the key things we want kids to be able to do are we want them to be able to split circles up into fractional parts. So if we have a circle here, we want them to be able to split it in half, or split it in quarters, or maybe split some quarters and some eighths, or even as far as into sixteenths. Okay, so they're actually working with a circle that has different fractional parts in it. All the parts are not equal, but we want them to understand what each of the parts means, because we're actually going to start to talk about probability, which we began in this unit a little bit earlier. So that's how likely something is to happen. And we want kids to be able to use their strategies and think of strategies for solving problems. Being able to create parts of a circle where it's, let's say, more likely to land on stripes than it is to land on dots. Okay? And maybe it's more likely to land on dots than it is to land on crisscross. Alright, so we use colors. I'm just using the black and white to kind of get the idea, but you can see how the spinner could be designed, and we call it a spinner because if we make a dot there, or in the middle, and we use a paper clip, we can spin it around. Okay, and it becomes a spinner. And you can see that the way this circle is, it's most likely to land on white, alright, and it's least likely to land on the hash marks. So we want kids to be able to talk about strategies for coming up with good spinners that meet certain criteria, and also coming up with criteria and designing spinners to go with it for certain probabilities. We want them to use basic probability terms. So when I say probability, like how likely it is, something's going to be less likely or more likely. Alright, or perhaps equally likely, alright, if it's the same chances. And that's what we're looking at. We're looking at chances. Also, we want them to be able to use, to do probability experiments. Alright, so just take some tallies, actually spin this spinner around 10 times and see where does it actually land, and then be able to make predictions for if they were to do it again. And then also, we want them, the Everyday Math has in 11.4, the Homelink, they have it set up so there's a spinner here. And actually, this is also the same kind of spinner that's in the workbooks, but it's sectioned off by 15-degree increments. And when we look at this, we can see there's 24 of these in a circle. So kids can think of this whole circle as a circle with 24 parts. Okay, and so when they think about splitting up the circle, they are thinking actually about, well, 24 parts is the whole, so if I want something to be the most likely, that has to take up the most number of these parts. And then they can actually create spinners, sort of like I did over there. So I know that if this is half, there's 12 parts in here. Okay, so we'll say 12 parts in there. Alright, and let's say 12 parts black. Right, 12 parts kind of black scribble. And then we have just 1, 2, 3, so maybe 3 parts hash marks. Okay, so we know we've used 12 plus 3, 15, we have 9 more parts to use, and maybe we'll just leave those white. And then we could talk about how likely, if we have a spinner here, it is to land on certain parts. Okay, we can see it's most likely to land on this black, because that's most of the circle. Okay, it's not as likely to land, it's least likely to land on these hash marks, and it's more likely to land on white than it is to land on hash marks, but it's less likely to land on white than it is to land on the black. And so that equals the hash marks, and then 9, we'll just say equals the white. Yeah, 15 plus 9. So these numbers have to add up to 24 so that all the parts get counted. If kids can think of these circles, the circle is sectioned off into parts, it makes it a lot easier. So we want kids to be able to use these degrees around the circle, but not really the degrees, more the parts inside that they count for, to be able to make spinners like that. As far as how you can help with this at home, basically use this language. How likely do you think it is to rain tomorrow? You know, how likely do you think we are to have pizza tonight? Well, since we've had pizza every Friday night for the last month, and this is Friday, I think we're very likely to have it tonight. Okay? Yes, you can use very likely. Or not very likely. Not very likely. You know, how likely do you think we are to have pork chops for supper? Okay, well, our family doesn't eat pork chops, so we are not very likely to have pork chops for supper. Alright, so you can use that, just that kind of language surrounding your everyday events, right? How likely do you think you are to go to the basketball game tonight? How likely, and then you can talk about it. Well, it's less likely that we would eat potato chips for supper than it is that we would eat cereal for supper, okay, or that we would eat salad for supper. So you can just use those terms. Just exposing kids to that language, having them hear it again and again, is going to help them a great deal in their math education and also the everyday math program. So this is lesson 11.4, Designing Spinners, the parent help video for grade 3 everyday math.